what you're worth. Now go out and get what you're worth.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Welcome to the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? It's we're playing the greatest radio show. Jim Cella and Johnny Parlay with the facts. So relax, grab a drink, then let's kick back.
Good evening, Pittsburgh, and welcome to our Week 4 edition of JDash's Beat-Ass Fantasy Football Team.
My fantasy team is great, first of all, but that's not all we're breaking down today. We're going to do a little bit of my fantasy team, and we're going to break down the top 20 in running backs and receivers, and then we're going to do a couple picks.
That I'm losing at, of course. I lose at
2 and
everything.
3. I'm 2 and 3. He's 1 and 4, of course. Get used to it.
Yeah, soon I'll be 4 and 1. Don't worry.
Well, those 4 losses are going to stick, so you'll never be 4 and 1.
No, see, my losses get erased the next week whenever I get wins. That's how it works for me.
If you put real money on this, your money would be erased too.
Definitely would be erased.
So
What about this beat-ass team? Did you lose last week?
No, actually I won. I was supposed to win big, but I ended up winning 85-80. My team did terrible, but the other team just made horrible decisions, playing people that weren't even going to play. So I ended up winning 85-80, and I go into this week 2 and 1, and I'm expected to win again by a healthy margin.
Well, that's because the moron you're playing, what is it, Manning 2 DT. I don't know if that's worse than 43 Polamalu 43, but it's another stupid name.
Yeah, these team names in this league are just ridiculous.
Well, they dropped Jamal Charles. Considering he's going to play this week, it was probably the stupidest move that this person could have ever made.
Benefactor.
Yeah, so you pick up Jamal Charles because this moron drops him and starts playing CJ. What the hell do they call him? CJ2K before? Because everybody has to have a freaking nickname nowadays.
Something like that.
He should be called CJ Don't Get No Yards anymore because he's garbage.
Yeah, Johnson isn't even the best running back in New York. Chris Ivory is a beast. He may be the closest thing to Marshawn Lynch there is. How can you drop Jamal Charles and pick up, I don't know who he picked up, but he put Chris Johnson in his starting lineup. So I don't know what this guy is thinking.
Yeah, Charles is predicted to get 19 points. Johnson's predicted to get 9. Way to give up 9 or 10 points, you moron.
It was all for 1 week, too. Charles sat out 1 week, and this guy was so impatient that he had to drop him. And I haven't used the waiver wires all year, so I was high on waivers, so I made the move.
So what are some favorable matchups for you? Who's your quarterback going against?
My quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, is going against Philadelphia.
Philadelphia has, the 30th ranked pass defense in the league?
Well, yeah, that's a result of their offense being so high-flying that other teams just got to throw to keep up.
Yeah, that's the one thing that concerns me about Philadelphia's offense. Chip Kelly is definitely innovative in his style of offense. But, sometimes you've seen with Peyton Manning at Indy, sometimes their fast-paced offense wore down the defense.
I don't know if it's so much as wearing it out as teams are just going to start throwing it. It's much harder to stop the pass in this league in this day and age.
Well, yeah, you're not allowed to hit the receiver until he catches the ball, takes 45 steps downfield, does a cartwheel, and probably gives you the finger. And then you're finally allowed to tackle him.
But anyways, I'm picked to win by 30 points. He already played this Sean Jackson yesterday, which was a good play, but he ended up getting 1 point, so he's beat there. But he does have Phillip Rivers going up against the worst defense in football, Jacksonville.
The Jaguars are pathetic. Everything they do is pathetic. They're 30th or worst in three of four categories this year. They have nothing. So this Phillip Rivers against Jacksonville, is it at San Diego?
It is.
Yeah, it's at San Diego. Yeah, so you better be careful. He's going to put up probably 55 points.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for me. And he has two of my top 20 wide receivers, as you'll hear here in a little bit. But his best player is DeMarco Murray. This guy is one of the best running backs in the league. He might be right behind LaShawn McCoy and Le'Veon Bell, in my opinion.
Yeah, Murray, when he's healthy, man, he tears it up. His only issue in his career has been trying to stay healthy. And I know that's an issue for almost every NFL player, especially running backs. They get the crap beat out of them running through the line, getting destroyed by 300-pound linemen and linebackers that run the 40 and 4.3.
Yeah,
But
so he has
Murray's he's a good play for them.
Yeah, he could have Murray and Jamal Charles as his 2 running backs, but he's an idiot, so whatever. He has Greg Olsen, a tight end. I like him, but my team's way better. I'm going to win again this week, move to 3-1.
You know, Ertz may put the Ertz on somebody again, even though he hasn't really Ertz nobody yet.
His first 2 games of the season were great, but he did nothing last week, and neither did McCoy, neither did Sproles. Macklin did everything for Philly, apparently.
You know, you're projected to win, what, 139 to 122?
Well, now it's 109 because Deshaun Jackson did garbage.
All right, well, I'm gonna live project you to lose at like 109 to like 83 because I think your team's beat.
Well, you'll see after this week.
Yeah, I'll see. I'll see you lose. I love when you lose.
I'm a fantasy guru, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
Guru. Every time you've helped me with my draft, I've lost. So I think you're a fantasy loser.
You're up there in points, so I can't change the win-loss record, but I can make you score a lot of points.
Fantasy needs revamped, but that's a story for another time. Let's move on to these top fantasy backs and wide receivers you got.
Well, first, let's get into 2 quarterbacks that people in deeper leagues might want to pick up. Blake Bortles for Jacksonville. He's only owned in 17% of Yahoo leagues.
Yeah, I mean, he may be a good sign. The thing is, with quarterbacks, obviously you only play one at a time. And, not in your league because you're an 8-team league, so you're not going to be changing out too much. Maybe in deeper leagues, 12 teams or something. But I don't know. I can't see Bortles putting up that many big numbers that he's going to really want to take over for anybody you already have starting. But he could be a good bye week guy, to fill in.
When you're in a 12-team league, you might not even have a good quarterback because some teams have 2 good quarterbacks and you're left with Kirk Cousins playing.
Well, yeah, and I guess if you're in a keeper league, you may want to pick him up because I think Bortles is going to be a stud in his career, quite honestly.
Definitely pick up Bortles should already be picked up in a keeper league. But then you got Michael Vick. He's only owned in 3% of the leagues.
Michael Vick, the dog.
I tell you what, man, if you're hurting for a quarterback, you could do worse than Michael Vick.
Michael Vick. Yeah,
he's better than Geno Smith.
He puts up fantasy numbers. I said before he's better than Geno Smith. Vick runs the ball well. Obviously, we all know that. He throws the ball well usually until he goes into little fits sometimes where he's not very accurate. But he's definitely a better play for the Jets. I don't know why he's not in it. Only being owned in, 3% of Yahoo leagues?
Yeah, listen, he's not my favorite quarterback by far, and I don't even know if he's going to be that great. But if you're hurting a quarterback, just pick up Michael Vick, stash him at the end of the bench. And
right.
Who knows what can happen?
If you don't have Rodgers or Breeze or one of the top 3 quarterbacks, you definitely want to pick up Vick because if he goes off, it's always for mad points.
All right, let's get into these fantasy running backs for Week 4. These rankings are excluding any Giants or Redskins because they played yesterday.
The name we don't speak of, Chief Powwow.
Chief Powwow.
All right, who we got here?
Well, Chief Powwow said Le'Veon Bell is the number 1 running back this week versus Tampa Bay. Because, of course, Tampa Bay is a terrible defense, a terrible offense, terrible everything.
They're just terrible. Even their colors are terrible. Their logo is stupid. Everything about Tampa Bay sucks.
Yeah, I expect Le'Veon Bell to have a big game, and I expect the Steelers to be up, so they're going to be running the ball in the second half.
Yes.
LeGarrette Blount's going to take some of that away, but Le'Veon Bell's going to have a huge game.
Not to get away from this Week 4, lineup thing you got going on with this top running backs. What about LeGarrette Blount in a keeper league? Is he somebody worth stashing as an RB3 maybe? A flex player? Do you think the Steelers are going to have enough games where they're up by enough points where he'll get enough carries that matters?
Well, it depends on what your keeper league looks like. If you're keeping a full roster each year, LeGarrette Blount isn't a bad choice. But if you're only keeping 5 players each season, you can't use a backup running back for a keeper choice.
Okay. Do you think he'll get enough goal line carries this year to maybe get between 8 to 10 touchdowns?
8 to 10 sounds like a lot. What's he have now? 2?
2, yeah.
2. So, yeah, it could happen, but I wouldn't trust it. Maybe on a bye. Some of these bye weeks, like this week, there's a lot of buys, so you might have to pick up someone like Blount in a deeper league.
Yeah, I mean, some of these leagues, like your league, it got away from kickers, and I hope more leagues follow suit. So that opens up another skill position player. So you could get lucky. I'm not saying you want to go pick him up and drop one of your starting running backs because he's not going to get enough carries to do that. But in a game like this where we expect the Steelers to be up big, it definitely is an option.
Yes, sir. And then I have, to round out my top 5, I have DeMarco Murray, Matt Forte, Arian Foster, and LaShawn McCoy.
all stud running backs. Forte probably gets the least exposure. You might be able to say Foster now because Houston doesn't get really any coverage, but when Foster was blowing it up down there in Houston, he was on the cover of Madden and everybody's number one pick. No matter how good Forte does, he really just always flies under the radar out there in Chicago.
Well, Arian Foster's coming off injury. He didn't play last week, but I still expect him to have a big game, even though Buffalo is pretty good against the run. I still expect Houston to be up in this game and running the ball. And then you got LaShawn McCoy had a bad week last week, but how can you not expect McCoy to bounce back?
Yeah, there's no way he's going to have 2 bad weeks in a row. Him and Le'Veon Bell definitely are the number 1 and 2, if not 1A and 1B running backs in the league. They're the only backs, maybe besides Jamal Charles. He doesn't quite have the size that Bell does. But McCoy and Bell are the only backs who can carry the ball and catch the ball as well as each other.
Then as my number 6 running back, I have a little bit of a surprise, Donald Brown. But he's going up against Jacksonville. And like we said, they have the worst defense in the NFL. Now, why I have Donald Brown? Obviously, Ryan Matthews and Woodhead are both out.
Yeah, Woodhead, what did he break his leg? I think he's out for the year.
Yeah, he's done.
And Ryan Matthews is a guy who's always had injury issues again in his career.
Yeah, I think he's going to miss 2 or 3 more weeks. But Donald Brown's only owned in 50% of Yahoo leagues right now.
Yeah, and he used to start in Indy, right?
And we're talking about on a week where there's a lot of good running backs having buys. So you got to go out there and pick up a guy like Donald Brown.
Yeah, you guys got to be checking your waiver wires. Check the matchups. The matchups are so big in fantasy football. You know, McCoy may be the best back in football, but if he's going against the number 1 run defense, you don't sit him, a guy like his quality. But, you know, when you're looking at fringe players, the matchup means everything.
Okay, then rounding out the top 10, I have Charles, Lamar Miller, Darren Sproles, and Eddie Lacy.
Eddie Lacy. Everybody's big on Eddie Lacy this year. I'm not a huge Eddie Lacy fan. I don't see what the big deal is.
Yeah, listen, Eddie Lacy has looked terrible so far, but you know what? He's going up against Chicago, and they have, besides Jacksonville, the worst run defense in the league.
Yeah.
So if Eddie Lacy's going to get it done any week, it has to be this week.
Chicago's run defense is just garbage. I don't know what happened to them. They're kind of like the Steelers where they used to dominate every running back that went against them, and now all of a sudden they're just open up holes like they're barn doors.
And I hate Green Bay's offense, too. They don't know how to run an offense.
They're not consistent. You can't throw it 30 times and then try to run it 7-8 times in a row. It's almost, again, like the Steelers offense, except for we do too many short passes. Well, Green Bay chucks it 50 yards down the field 8 times, and then they're like, oh, that don't work. We might as well just run it.
Okay, so 11 through 15, we have Amal Bradshaw, Shane Vereen, C.J. Spiller, Fred Jackson, and round that off with Reggie Bush.
I'd have to say Bush is my favorite out of those couple that you just named. He definitely has the...
I would have Reggie
ability
Bush
to go
higher
off.
this week, but he's going into New York Jets, that is, and they are the number 1 run defense right now.
Yeah, see, there's a perfect example of where you really need to pay attention to the matchup. Reggie Bush is a solid RB2, maybe RB3, depending on your players.
Joey Bell is getting more and more playing time as the season goes along, too.
Yeah. And, C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson, they're always tough. If for some reason you can get both of them to play for a bye week if you need it, that would be all right. But you never know who's going to do the running. You really don't.
Okay, so like we said, with this bye week, the last 5 in the top 20 aren't going to be that great, but they may get it done for you in a pinch. We got Pierre Thomas, Doug Martin, Frank Gore, Matt Asiata. I don't even like this guy, but he's there, and D'Angelo Williams.
Well, first of all, Doug Martin, the muscle hamster's garbage, so you can just mark him off the list.
Doug Martin?
Yeah, he's garbage. I know the Steelers' defense isn't that great against the run. I don't see him getting most of the carries. Bobby Rainey's getting most of the carries down there in Tampa now. With a new coach, I wouldn't be surprised if Martin got traded in the offseason.
I think Lovie Smith's their coach down there.
Yeah.
He has trouble admitting that Bobby Rainey's the better running back. So Doug Martin's going to get more playing time for some reason. And, I mean, the guy that gets more playing time got to be the guy that's higher ranked.
What about Pierre Thomas? He's down in New Orleans still?
Yeah, well, Mark Ingram looks like I think he had 19 fantasy points the first week and again the second week. But he's out, so Pierre Thomas is going to be on the list. He's going up against Dallas, and you know about their defensive troubles.
Yeah, Dallas hasn't been able to get it together on the defensive side of the ball the last couple of years. They've gone through a couple different defensive coordinators. Nothing seems to be working.
And then I want to give you a couple sleeper running backs here to maybe stash at the bottom of your bench. I think his name's Taliaferro from Baltimore. Bernard Pierce, they're down on him, and this guy racked up 91 yards and a touchdown last week against Cleveland. He's only owned in 39% of Yahoo leagues. And then, like I said, I don't like Asiata. So the guy I like in Minnesota is Jerick McKinnon. He's only owned in 13% of the leagues.
Yeah, and Castle broke his foot, so Bridgewater's taken over at quarterback. I could see Minnesota's offense doing something a couple weeks in a row. You know, sometimes when a young quarterback comes in, teams have no film. They have nothing on them. Bridgewater could spark that offense, and McKinnon could be the one who benefits from that.
Yeah, like I said, Asiata's probably the better play this week, but McKinnon's eventually going to take that job. I just feel it. So just stash him on your bench if you're short on running backs and there's nothing out there on the waiver wire. And then Jeremy Hill's only owned in 53% of the leagues as well. And he's a dominant. Yeah, since he's back up, he looks like a beast.
Yeah, I didn't even know Bernard got hurt. What happened to Bernard? Do you know?
Well, no, Bernard's not hurt. This is a bye week. I'm just saying stash Jeremy Hill.
All right, I got you. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to you because your fantasy team sucks.
And then ridiculously, one more for you guys. No-Show Marino's only owned in 55% of the leagues.
He's the starter down there in Miami, isn't he?
Yeah, he's hurt right now, so people are dropping him. Are you crazy? There is not many good running backs. These are the kind of people you have to stash.
You almost never drop a starting running back unless it's week 10 and they're out for the next 8 weeks. You know, that's when you're okay to drop a starter. But other than that, you never want to drop a guy who's going to get the bulk of the carries.
Yeah, so let's move on to fantasy wide receiver here.
Well, if everybody could have Calvin Johnson on their team, then I'm sure they would all be happy. But only one guy gets him. Yeah,
anytime we do this, I might as well not even list the number one wide receiver because it's always going to be Calvin Johnson.
Well, the dude, I mean, they don't call him Megatron for, no reason. He's gigantic. He's fast. He's strong. He's got glue for hands. I mean, you see the dude catch the ball with 2 fingers sometimes. It's ridiculous.
Then rounding out the top 5, Dez Bryant, Julio Jones, Brandon Marshall, Antonio Brown.
You know, Brandon Marshall is probably the only player in the league that can compare to Calvin Johnson, if you ask me.
I don't know. Kelvin Benjamin looks like the next Kelvin Johnson, to tell you the truth. I think they have the same first name, too, but they're spelled totally different. One might be Kelvin, one Calvin, whatever.
Who knows?
But anyways, I have Dez Bryant so high. Isn't he going up against New Orleans this week?
Yeah.
I don't have that
listed
listed
there. The Saints have the 29th
for...
ranked pass defense.
Yeah, and I expect Dallas to be passing all game because I expect New Orleans to win that game anyways.
Yeah, it's going to be a high-scoring game. I could see New Orleans jumping out to a big lead, so Dallas will have to start chucking the ball around. So Dez Bryant is definitely going to get most of the targets as long as he stays, on the field.
And then, let's see, rounding out the top 10 here. Number 6, I have Andre Johnson, and then 7, Elshon Jeffrey, Julian Edelman, Jordy Nelson. Is that 10? 10. No, Keenan Allen's 10th.
Keenan Allen, I don't know. He did all right. Jordy Nelson, we all know I hate him.
Well, listen, Keenan Allen's had a terrible year so far, and I'm not he's on my fantasy team. I'm not happy with him. But again, they're going up against Jacksonville. 32nd in a pass, 32nd in a rush. They should be able to move the ball at will, and since Keenan Allen hasn't done much, I'm thinking they're going to want to showcase him and get him a big game, get his confidence back up.
Well, what about Antonio Brown, man? We said earlier he's the only one that Ben has thrown a touchdown pass to, so he's definitely a must-play.
Well, yeah, that's why I have him at number 5.
Well, who do you got after the top 10?
Okay, starting at 11, I have Randall Cobb, Brandon Cooks, T.Y. Hilton, and Jeremy Maclin as my next 5.
Maclin put up some big numbers, I think it was last week.
Yeah, Maclin put up a huge game last week, and they're going up against San Francisco this week. It's a pretty good defense, but I'd probably have Maclin a little higher up the list if it wasn't San Francisco.
Yeah, San Fran's always tough to play, especially at home. So, that's going to be a slow beat-em-up game. San Francisco is going to try to slow down the pace. What about Brandon Cooks against Dallas? He's slowly becoming their number 1 receiver down there.
He is their number 1 receiver down there. And I still like Marcus Colston, but I think Brandon Cooks is becoming maybe the best player on the offensive side besides Drew Brees, obviously. And I expect him to have a huge game against Dallas because, like we said earlier, they're a terrible defense and even worse against... Actually, they're pretty good against the run, so I expect a lot of passing in his game.
Well, who else you got here after these top 5?
I think we only listed 14 right there.
14?
Top 14, but we got good old Steve Smith Sr. up next.
Steve Smith Sr. He's got to put that senior in his name because he had a kid. Does it really matter?
Yeah, it is a little ridiculous, but Turi Smith is garbage. Steve Smith's the only receiver they got in Baltimore this year, it seems like. Turi Smith has done nothing.
Well, yeah, and Dennis Pitta, I think he dislocated his hip or broke his hip or he has an old man hip. I don't know, but he's out for the rest of the season.
They have Owen Daniels out there, too. I like him at tight end, actually.
I mean, yeah, but still Smith's going to get the majority of targets. Flacco's got a big arm. He likes to throw downfield, so if Smith can still get going down, he might actually get a lot more targets.
Then rounding out the top 20, Crabtree, Roddy White, Patterson out in Minnesota, DeAndre Hopkins, and then a pretty big surprise, I guess people would say, is Allen Robinson from Jacksonville against San Diego.
Yeah, I don't even know who that dude is.
Cecil Shorts is still supposed to be considered the number 1 receiver out there. They got Marcus Lee too, but Allen Robinson has been coming up big the past few weeks, and I'm taking a little bit of chance, but I like him here.
You know, he may be good, but without Bortles playing, I don't really see him being able to do a whole lot. Henny's pretty much garbage. He's proved that over the course of these couple games this year. So, you know, for me, unless Bortles starts getting more playing time, I would probably stay away from Robinson.
Again, this is a bye week. There isn't much out there. There might be some receivers that I could have listed ahead of him, but I'm sticking with my guns. Allen Robinson, play him.
And, you know, Patterson might be an interesting pick because, like we just said, Bridgewater's playing. So, you know, Bridgewater could spark that offense, man.
And you know what? I just read an article this week that they want to feature Patterson in this offense more.
Well, he's good with the ball in his hands, too. He doesn't just go downfield well. He returns kickoffs, I think, and punts. So if you can get him the ball in space, he can make something happen.
He's actually not ranked in the top 20 in most lists going into this week, but after reading that article and knowing that they don't have many offensive weapons and Patterson probably is their best player without Peterson, I moved him up the list. I like him, especially versus Atlanta.
Well, as long as he's in our top 20, that's all anybody needs to worry about because we know everything. That pretty much wraps up our fantasy segment for the week, so we're going to move into some of these games here in a couple, 5 games I think we have to pick?
Yeah, do a couple picks here, see if I can beat you for the second week in a row.
Yeah. First game, we got Green Bay at Chicago. Green Bay's -2. Green Bay is 1-2 against the spread this year. Chicago is 2-1. You know, Green Bay seems to be the better team, but, you know, like we said a couple minutes ago, we're not really big on their offense. It's not balanced.
Yeah, who's their offensive coordinator out there? Do you know who it is?
I don't know. They just lost Ben McAdoo. He just went to New York this year, so that's why I think they're in a little bit of flux, and they don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah, they should have got Ken Wisenhunt to be their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that dude knows what he's doing. But Green Bay, if they were smart, they need to give the ball to Lacey with Chicago's 30th ranked defense against the run.
Yeah, like I said, Lacey should have a big week this week. If he doesn't this week, well, he never
He's
will.
never going to, right. But Green Bay -2 at Chicago, I don't know about that. Chicago plays well at home, man. I might take Chicago.
I think you're going to take Chicago? I was thinking about taking Chicago. I'm going to take Green Bay.
All right, well, I already took Chicago, so you have to take Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm going to take Green Bay. Why not? Brandon Marshall's hurting right now. He'll play like he always does. Alshon Jeffrey's hurting. So, yeah, Green Bay.
I say Forte has a big game, and Chicago wins this game by about 3 or 4 points.
I'll go with you that Forte is going to have a big game.
All right, moving on to Tennessee at Indy. Indy is -8.
That's a big line.
Yeah, that's a big line. Indy was my pick of the week. I was talking to Johnny Parlay about this. I know it's a division game, and they usually play each other close, but Indianapolis needs to come out and prove themselves. They need to prove that they are an elite team in the AFC and an elite team in that division because they haven't played well in the first 3 games.
Well, I was looking at Tennessee as being a better team coming into this season with Ken Wisenhunt at head coach and what he does with quarterbacks, but Jake Locker hasn't looked good at all. They have no running backs. I think Sean Green's still their number 1 there.
Yeah, he only has 144 yards for the whole year.
This team's terrible.
Yeah, I could see Indy putting up big points and winning by double digits this week. I just feel it. I feel an Andrew Luck victory. Come on, Luck.
Yeah, Indy at home. I think Indy is going to turn out to be one of those teams that you just cannot beat at home.
Yeah, definitely. Luck has that, there's no way you're coming into my house and embarrassing me attitude. He's always getting those fourth quarter victories, so even if you can jump ahead to a big lead, he just doesn't quit. So he's definitely going to win a buttload of games at home.
Starting with this one and by more than 8, I'm saying Indy too.
Yeah. Well, that takes us to the Eagles and 49ers. The Niners are favored by 4.5. They are at home. That's a tough game for me to pick. I don't think the 49ers are what they were the last few years. I think that they're honestly in a slight decline.
I'd agree with that. They're in a slight decline, but everyone's acting like they're so terrible now. They're saying their defense is in disarray. Their defense isn't that bad. They're still pretty...
14th against the pass and 6th against the rush.
6 against the rush.
But
Sean
the Eagles,
McCoy didn't have a good game last week. He might have another tough matchup this week.
The Eagles have the second-ranked passing offense and amazingly only the 19th-ranked rushing offense with McCoy and Sproles. But I think that the Eagles are taking the Niners' place, and the Niners are going to take the Eagles' place in the standings this year because I think Philadelphia is going to take that next step up, and I think that the Niners just took a small, maybe a half step. Not in panic mode, but I don't think that they're the favorites to win that division or the conference.
I actually like Philly's defense a little bit, but the way they run their offense, it's going to be so hard for them to actually keep from other teams having high totals. But this week, what was your pick? Well, do you want me to make my pick first?
Well, if it stays at 4.5, I would take the Eagles.
Yeah.
I see this maybe being a field goal game. I don't think that San Francisco is going to win by 4.5 points.
Yeah, when looking at the line, two good teams like this, when it's 4.5, you might as well go with the underdog. I'm taking Philly too.
Yeah, definitely Philly. Well, what about Saints-Cowboys? The Saints have a high-flying offense. They're 5th in passing and 6th in rushing, which is kind of surprising because the Saints never run the ball very well.
What's the line on that game?
-3 for New Orleans.
And they're away.
They're away, and usually, the home team gets 3 points right off the bat.
And New Orleans hasn't looked too great this season.
Offensively, they have, just not defensively. They're 29th against the pass.
They only beat Minnesota by 10 last week. That was one of our picks, one of the ones we won, but they still barely covered that spread. And then the first 2 weeks of the season, they lost, right?
Yeah. The thing for me is Dallas is very, very close to New Orleans as far as travel time. They're both indoors. They're both on that same kind of fast turf. Dallas likes their offense to be slightly like New Orleans, so the field conditions are set up for that fast, high-paced offense. So I could see Breeze going down there and putting up a lot of points and winning this game by double digits. I have no faith in the Cowboys.
I don't think they're going to win by double digits, but they probably will cover this line. I hate picking the same thing as you on all these, but yeah, I'm going to take the Saints too.
I think the Saints are going to win by 10 or more, quite honestly. I have no faith in Dallas, like I said.
They barely beat Minnesota by 10, and they were at home last week.
Yeah, I get that, man, but I think the Cowboys are terrible, and
I think New Orleans' pass defense is terrible, so Tony Romo to Des Bryant's going to be a good combination this week.
Tony Romo can't throw the ball past the line of scrimmage anymore, but whatever you say.
He's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but against New Orleans' defense, please.
I'd rather bring Tommy Maddox out of retirement, but that's okay.
That's pushing it.
All right, what about our last game here? Kansas City and New England. New England's going into Kansas City favored by 3. That's shocking. Nobody really wins at Kansas City, even when they're a bad team. So to see New England favored by 3 with all their poor play this year.
Yeah, New England's looked terrible. Tom Brady has looked like garbage. He's slow now. By the way, people, if you haven't noticed, Tom Brady is not Tom Brady anymore.
No, his decision-making isn't the same. He's getting the ball out a lot slower. He's not reading the defense. He's not spreading the ball around. What made Brady great early and when he won them Super Bowls is it didn't matter who his number one receiver was. He got the ball to the open receiver no matter who it was, and this year it's nobody.
I still like their weapons, though.
Yeah, they have Gronk, Edelman, Vereen, Ridley, Dobson. Somebody else
those first 4 you said right there should be enough for them to score points, but
Edelman's the only one getting the ball, though. That's the thing. Brady's only getting him the ball, and I don't know if maybe losing Logan Mankins was a bigger blow than what they thought it was going to be, but Brady is constantly under pressure, and we all know that's the best way to beat Tom Brady.
Yeah, New England hasn't I don't even know if they covered a line yet this year. They look like crap. Are you taking KC? I'm going to take New England.
I'm probably going to take Kansas City.
I'm going to take New England now.
Well, then you take New England. I don't care. You can lose.
Yeah, this is one of the times everybody wanted New England the first 3 weeks because it's New England. And then when you lose, you go back and say, oh, I'm going against New England. Guess what happens then? New England wins.
I mean, hey, I've seen it happen before. They've kind of screwed me in some picks that I've made in the past,
Plus, I hate KC.
I like Andy Reid, but I don't like Alex Smith. And I think Andy Reid looks like a gigantor in that red shirt. He didn't look so big and green in
It's all
Philadelphia.
about last season and the Steelers' chances to make the playoffs and how KC and the refs just ruined it.
Well, yeah, they definitely ruined it.
So, forget KC. Bleep them, as you guys would say.
Bleep KC, says JDash. Well, I'm going to say
take
bleep New England.
Yeah, I don't like New England at all, to tell you the truth.
All right, well, last week you were 2-3 and I was 1-4, so hopefully I could turn that around and get a little bit higher than you on these picks.
I think I'm going to be 7-3.
7-3
total.
I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. When we see me sitting at 6-4 and you at 2-8, I'll be kind of happy.
I'm going to put a 5-team parlay on this and win big money.
That's it. Throw $5 down on it and win like 25.
Attention, people. That would be one stupid move.
Yes. Do not take anything that we suggest because we usually lose.
That's it. We wrapping this up?
Well, yeah, that's all we got for tonight. Thank you, Dash, for coming in and sitting down with me.
No problem.
You guys can follow us on Twitter at bet_thespread. Check out our Facebook page. We'll be getting these posts up soon. We'd like to post some fun pictures on there. You can see Debo, Hulk Hogan slamming a fan from Cleveland a few years back.
But yeah, follow us at bet_thespread.
Yeah, this episode was brought to you by Mochar's Plumbing. If your pipes are dripping, you'd be tripping if you didn't give Mochar's Plumbing a call. 724-961-1939. We want to thank him for his sponsorship. He always helps us out. And thank you again, Dash, for coming in. And thanks all the fans for listening. You all have a good night.
Take care.